Emerald of Katong will be the 5th launch in District 15 within a short 18 months. The question on everyone's mind is, with almost 3,500 units coming its way, will District 15 be oversupplied?
Hi, if you're new to the channel, I'm Alvin and I'm a real estate buff who's obsessed with all things real estate, especially data and human psychology. I've been fortunate enough to marry that passion with my work as a realtor, allowing me to achieve my dream of owning a landed property and a conservation shop house by the age of 36, together with my wife Elizabeth. And hopefully by sharing our knowledge through this channel, someone out there can achieve their real estate dreams as well by making the right move.
Some of the other questions I've been getting is, number one, how's Emerald of Katong going to compare with the other launches in District 15, Tembusu Grand, Continuum, Grand Dunman and Mayor Blue? Question number two, how's Emerald of Katong going to compare with the other big launch coming up real soon, Chuan Park? So I spent the last 2 days compiling all the data there is with regards to District 15, PSFs, transactions, profitability, so that we can answer all those questions the way we know best, using data. Speaking of oversupply, if you haven't already checked out our oversupply video where we comb through all 137 MRT stations in Singapore to find out the correlation between profitability and supply, please do. So the conclusion from that video was that there was no real good correlation between the supply within an area, in this case around an MRT station, and the profitability of those units. We have case studies like Great World, Queenstown that beat out the average despite having one of the highest supply of units around the MRT station. On the other end of the spectrum, we have places like Somerset and Orchard that is supposedly more prime but yielding below average returns despite not having a whole lot of supply. So don't assume if there's a lot of supply in an area that it will be unprofitable. And to help us look past that, we've spent a lot of time, energy, resources to do a lot of research, consolidate a lot of data, even to the extent of back testing all of that with the performance of previous launches to develop our exit strategy framework, which is going to help us visualize how the exit for Emerald of Katong will look like, and even comparing Emerald of Katong's exit with other launches in the market today, and we're going to dive into that in greater detail later on in the video. So most of you must have read the recent headlines like that, stating that new development sales volumes are at record low, giving you the impression that there's a lot of supply in the market, a lot of unsold inventory. But if you really dive in and look at the data, you might be in for a surprise. Let's take a look. So now what I'll be analyzing is what are the remaining units over at Tembusu Grand, Continuum and Grand Dunman, right? Which ones are available? How much do they cost? And also which ones sold very well with no remaining units, and what was the average sale prices? Having understood this, it will allow us to then take a look at the expected supply coming in Emerald of Katong, plot them out in a range of expected PSS, then comparing the different prices to allow you to spot the gaps. And I'm going to help you with that and run you through that thought process, okay? So now, starting first with Tembusu Grand, they sold about, I believe, was slightly over 50% on launch day, have continued to sell well through, I believe, it's almost a year now, and they've actually surpassed Grand Dunman in terms of the percentage sold. Okay, then followed thirdly by Continuum with that. You know, even though on launch day they only sold about 20% they have also continuously sold pretty well, and we're almost at 50% right now. Okay, so if you're just looking at these numbers, you add this together, it's like 100% of one particular development still not sold, right? But after we take a look, if we look at it in greater detail, you're going to spot some interesting trends. Okay, here's what I see. At Tembusu Grand, it's the 1+ study that we still have about 21 units. There's no 2-bedroom premiums left. I believe on launch day already sold out of their 2-bed, 2-baths. The 2+ study only left 11 units. 3 compact only left 4 units, right? And then subsequently, the slightly bigger units, you have more balance. So if you look at it this way, the center most affordable group have all been fully taken up. And I've been tracking the sales of Tembusu Grand as well. The 4 bidders have been moving very strongly over the last month or two. Okay, one thing to note about 3+ study at Tembusu Grand, not my favorite one. Reason being where it's located at. For those of you who know, is a lot of these stacks are located very close to the multi-story car park, and if you are like below level 8, level 7, level 8, if you look out from your unit, right, you can see the whole multi-story car park on one side, right, which I don't think people would like very much, which is why you notice the 4-bedder sell-through rate is actually better than the 3+ study, even though it's quite a fair bit more expensive, right? People much rather either buy the 3 compact or the 4-bedder. So this one you really need to dive in and take a look and understand, right? If not, you just by looking at these numbers, you may not see the full picture. And also remember this 3+ study at Tembusu Grand, right? How much are they asking for? Ranging from the 3+ study, right, 2.7 onwards. 2.7 onwards. Remember this number, I'm going to come back to this. Okay, I'm not going to dive in too much on the sales so far and the ranges. Maybe this one I will come back to it. It's more beneficial we come back to this once we are trying to find the gaps, right, in the between Emerald of Katong and the existing supply. Okay, right. So conclusion: 2+ study, 3 compact, very well sold. Nothing much left actually. So if you are coming in here from a 1.8 to 2.4 mil budget, Tembusu Grand, nothing much to buy. Moving on, Continuum, about 50% sold. Notice the 1+ study, a lot left. Okay, one of the reasons being very expensive, in excess of 1.48 million, almost 1.5 million. Okay, that's one of the reasons why it hasn't really sold very well. A bit too expensive for my liking. Their 2-bed 2-bath has sold decently. Yeah, I believe is probably about 60% sold, right? A rough look like that. The 2+ study surprisingly have sold very well, right? Better than the 2-bedder. And the 2+ study have sold well in excess of about ±2 mil thereabouts. Okay, again, this kind of numbers, pay attention to it, because once I flash out the expected prices over at EOK, if you're sharp, you could start to notice these gaps available already. Okay, 3 compact have moved steadily, right? It's about this right smack 50% sold. 3 premium, a little bit slower. 3 premium, one of the reasons why, if you notice over here, the 3 premium price points 2.8 mil onwards. Okay, and then the rest of it, understandably so, it's there's still quite a fair bit balanced. So again, in a very similar trend with Tembusu Grand, the middle parts, the 2 all the way up to the 3 compact, have sold pretty well, and there's actually not much options remaining available. Okay, coming on to Grand Dunman, 70% sold. Okay, even their 1-bedder has sold very well, only 3 units left. The 1+ study got a bit more balance. Okay, the 1-bedder sold off at slightly over a mil, sold very well. Okay, the 1+ study price points, right, you are looking at about 1.4. So you can see sort of the resistance range. Once it starts to hit about 1.4 M, the sales start to slow down quite a fair bit. Yeah, especially for 1-bedders lah. So the interesting thing about Grand Dunman is that they don't have a proper 2-bed 2-bath, right? Your range of supply for 2-bedder is 2-bed 1-bath. Okay, the 2-bed 2-bath is a dual key, else you bump all the way up to a 2+ study. Okay, and even then, the 2-bedders all I think you add together, you're gonna see in excess of about almost 260 units, right? Rough calculation, we are left with about 20 units like that. Sold through all the way from 1.5 all the way to 2.2 million already. Their 3 compact is also fully sold, right? 3 compact is also more or less fully sold based on what I know. Their 3-bedroom Grand, you see over here, this Grand versus luxury, right? Very interesting, right? The luxury sell very well, but the Grand not so good, right? The reason why is the Grand is private lift, very big, and the Grand prices are 3.5 mil and above. Okay, the 3-bedroom luxury is the more regular layouts, no private lift, 2.4 onwards, and you see these are being bought up or much preferred by consumers with only 18 left. Okay, about 85% sold this way. The dual key, understandably so, we have quite a few ballots. I've been getting a lot of dual key questions recently. I mean, I've always gotten them on and off. Whether or not dual key is the right option for you really depends on where you are in your stage of life or your property asset building stage. Okay, so if you're early on, I would say if you're somebody younger than 40, younger than 45 per se, I don't really recommend getting a dual key. It's because it takes a while to sell in the resale market, and there may be limited upside because the buyers that come in to buy, they are yield driven, number one, and they are mostly investors. They may not look to buy over a unit like that, or they tend not to kind of overpay. Right, the higher chances of that people overpay for your unit is if they like it for their own stay lah. Yeah, so it kind of narrows the profile down, and they are solely meant for investors already. And moving forward, right, with property tax coming up, right, the government has determined that property tax is a wealth tax, right, for the wealthier people. Then that will continue to come up. It may not be as lucrative as it used to be. Right, rental yield, the pursuit of rental yield, rental units as a sort of income generating asset may not be as attractive as it used to be. Okay, I'll just give you an example, right? Our Park Esta unit, we used to collect about 6,500 in rental. So over 12 months, you expect to collect slightly over 70, over 1,000, right? After netting off interest, maintenance fee, agent fees, because we pay we get agents to help us rent out our units ourselves as well. All the expenses, right? Net, we take back like slightly less than 30,000, right? In the mid 20 over 1,000. After which, then you still have to pay income tax on that number. So just to give you a perspective, so maybe you take back 1/3 of what you actually collect after netting off all the costs. And so as more and more people realize this, they may start swaying away from the rental yield play, and dual key units may not be as popular as they were last time, right? The higher the property tax, the less attractive it is to hold rental units as an asset. Yeah. And so, just to pay attention. But of course, if you are looking to retire, right, and you are looking to have a unit whereby you can stay in one side and have another side yielding you passive income for retirement, right? That's still a good idea. Okay, you just have to be aware that when you sell it out in the resale market, it may not be the fastest sale. For example, number one, I don't think you will necessarily lose money. I don't think you will lose money per se, but I think your primary means of gaining income that way would be from the rental lah. Okay, as we look downwards, similarly, so you notice the trend over the 3 condos are that the 2 and the 3 compacts are the one that's really moving. Right, in your budgets between the range of 1.6 all the way up to 2.3 mil, they're sold off pretty well, right? If you just capture it in this range, there's little supply, very little supply over here, right? Once you go from 3 premium or 4 and above or 1 bedder, those are the ones that are sitting and showing up in the availability of units. Okay, now looking at average sale prices, which would be average PSF sold, which would be something that people pay attention to, 2,400, 2,477 for Tembusu Grand, 2,754 for Continuum because it's freehold, and 2,540, 2,540 for Grand Dunman. Okay, now coming back to here, right, I could share this sheet with you guys where I consolidated all the recent launches over at District 15, how many units are there coming online, which is why we see here close to 4,000 units, a mixture of freehold and 99. Now, what we want to look at, so these are the average PSF sold, right? I've also included Leaf at MB, right? All the data that I shared earlier, and calculated the percentage difference between the average PSF sold and the land cost. The reason why I do this is to try to see, using some of this data to extrapolate and try to predict what's the expected sale price for over at Emerald of Katong, right? But one thing to note is that Emerald of Katong is the first GFA harmonized plot in the District 15 area. And the guiding principle of how do you appleize a GFA harmonized plot versus a non-GFA harmonized plot it's between about 8% to 10% differential in terms of PSF. Okay, because it's an 8 to 10% difference in terms of size. Yeah, so naturally you just translate that into PSF. Okay, and so what I see over here is that if we kind of take a conservative percentage which I can take from Tembusu Grand would be 90%. I plug that in over here and I take 10%. So it would be about double what they could sell their land cost at, and we come in at a very attractive 2,138 PSF. Now but again, this doesn't mean that they will have to sell you at this price. It means they can and still probably make about the same amount as they did with the other developers, which is why I would say I'm paying a lot of attention over to Emerald of Katong. So I'm just being a little conservative here and plotting out about 2003 to 2006 PSF, because if we look back, a lot of the times when developers bought the land cheap, they don't end up translating that savings to buyers, okay, because a lot of them suffered very badly during COVID, during 2018. This is perhaps their chance to really make back the money. And if you put yourself in the shoes of a developer, if you know these are the available units for sale, how would you be pricing it? Actually, that's a very interesting question. I asked this to my team as well, right? If you put yourself in the shoes of a developer, how would you be pricing your Emerald of Katong units? For me, I would be pricing the 2-bedders at the highest PSF, maybe the 3-compact at the highest PSF, because I know buyers don't really have an alternative for that. Okay, so this was what was released to us, the expected price ranges, size ranges. Okay, we don't know the price yet. But so I'm going to help you with that. I'm going to plug in from all the way from 2,300 to 2,600, right? If they decide to go super aggressive. Knowing Simian, I think they are a more realistic developer. Word on the street is that we should expect something closer in between these two numbers, 2004 to 2005. I mean, if you average out the whole development. I've highlighted the types where I feel there's a good gap between the existing sold prices or the existing supply in that area, right? Simply using those parameters. Okay, so your 1+ study coming in at, so at the end of the day, right, the conclusion over here that I've seen, right, is that GFA harmonization is benefiting Emerald of Katong, because the rest of them didn't have GFA harmonization. Emerald of Katong can sell you a smaller square footage. They bought it at a cheaper PSF, so they could come in lower. And if you can get it, I think there's a very good chance you will do well. Okay, but this is how you can watch the gap. So 1+ study, if they come in, let's say 2004, 2005 PSF, you're going in 1.1, 1.2. If you notice, if you pay attention, right, 1.1 to 1.2, about the same price as Grand Dunman's 1-bedder, but this is a 1+ study, have sold very well. Yeah, we don't have much left. We will have a very good gap to Continuum's 1+ study that is currently asking about 1.4 plus. That's like a good 200 to 300k more expensive than you. Tembusu's 1+ study is also almost 1.4, offering you about 100 to 200k price gap. Right, so the gap is nice and obvious for the 1+ study. For the 2 premium, not so much, right? Quite simply because if you look at the sizes, this is 646, right? The other sizes 667, 646, and 667. So if you see the square footage not that big, likely the translation would be the price quantum is also not that big. We are likely going to come in as one of the most affordable 2-bedders even then, right? But the gap may not be as big as the rest. You see 1.4 or 1.5, 1.6, right? 1.5, 1.6, 1.55. Yeah, so the gap is not as much. But then again, doesn't mean cannot buy, because we have seen that there's not much options available left in the market. Okay, the 2+S is where it gets interesting. Okay, so because the 2+S, as you can see, the existing supply, 2+ study, Grand Dunman 2.1 mil, Continuum 1.99, Tembusu Grand 1.9. You can come in at, let's say 2004, 2500 PSF, 1.6 to 1.7. Again, a very comfortable, almost 200k gap there for you. 3-compact, 2 mil, 2.1, 2.2. Right, you see the current asking prices. 3-compact Grand Dunman, nothing left already. Yeah, you see, After 2.1 mil, right, you jump all the way to 3 or 2.4 mil already. Yeah, and this is a 3 premium, 2.45, right? 3 compact, Grand Dunman 2.3. 3 compact Tembusu, left only 4 units, 2.6. We can come in, if you can come in something at 2.1, 2.2, very comfortable gap, right? So if you're asking me, is it worth to stretch the budget? I think you can consider, right? But it gives you a pretty good range of like, if you cannot really hit this, maybe you just spend just enough. 2+ study, I believe is good enough. Yeah. Of course, contingent on layout, contingent on facing. The 3+ study, right? I've mentioned it already. This is the 3 compact, 3+ study. 3 flexi likely would be the 3 premium lah, I feel, for Emerald of Katong. 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. Right, already people moving very close to 3 mil, right? Let's look at some of the existing ones, right? The 3-bedroom premium, right? 2.4, 2.8, 2.7, right? 2.7, same, right? We have $200,000 to $300,000 gap. The 4+ study is one of my highest conviction ones, because here's the gap is very, very evident. That's it coming in at say 2.7, 2.8. The other 4-bedders, you see the sold ones are cheapest 3 mil, cheapest 3.3, cheapest 3.3. Okay, that is translating also to the available ones 3.2, 3.2, 3.3. So you can come in at 2.7, even 2.8, even 2.9. It's 200 to 300k gap. Of course, the lower the better, right? Because this one they managed to build it in at 1152 square feet. Hopefully it's not too odd, but if the layout makes sense, this would be easily by far my highest conviction unit type over at Emerald of Katong. Once you hit the 4 premium and 4 lux, of course, depending on layout, but they are at over pretty close to the 3 mil mark, 3.1, 3.2. I think still okay, but they don't offer as big a gap as the 4+ study. Then lastly, if you have the budget, 5 mil, 5-bedder, 3.5, likely to come in at about 3.7-ish. Yeah, 3.5 to 3.7. The big ones, maybe the PSF a bit lower, unless you are UOL at Pine Tree, they price their 5-bedders the highest price. But the trend that I see over at the District 15 side, the larger units are still the ones that pull in the slightly. Only Continuum, they price them highest, but if you look at Grand Dunman, the PSF is one of the slightly cheaper ones for the larger units lah. Some of the cheaper ones for the larger units. Okay, but here you can see 5-bedder comparables. Tembusu Grand 4 mil, Continuum 5.4 mil, and Grand Dunman 5.2 or 4 mil, right? So you can get something at 3.5 to 3.7, you still have a good gap. But at the end of the day, you notice the kind of gaps that I'm saying, 200-300k, 200-300k, there's only a few that offers you something a bit more, 400-500k. But does that mean that those who confirm make money or the existing one cannot make money? The answer is no, right? It requires a lot more deeper analysis, to it. So now for yourself, right, if you're looking to purchase a unit over at Emerald of Katong, which is the exact one you should be picking, by saying this, does it mean the rest it's not good? Not necessarily. If you have a slightly longer holding period, there are some options that I feel may beat up Emerald of Katong, because Emerald of Katong also has its downsides, which I will be mentioning over the 3 things I like and don't like. Now, if you are confused as to which is the best one for you, which facings to pick, which PSS makes sense, feel free to drop us a text. We're happy to send this consolidated research to you or help you gain a little bit of clarity on which ones are the best ones to pick, because we have consolidated all this data. Anyway, we've done all the research. We are familiar with what's good, what's not over there. So happy to help you out on that note. So now that we've answered the question on how does Emerald of Katong compare with the other District 15 launches, we're going to move on to the next big question. How does Emerald of Katong compare with the other big launch coming soon, Chuan Park. And we're going to be utilizing our exit strategy framework to do that. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, please do check out our video where we explain in great detail how this exit strategy framework works. But for the benefit of everyone, a very quick summary. Why we wanted to do it is to, number one, allow us to compare projects that are not necessarily near to one another or share the same attributes, but try our best to compare them on an apple-to-apple basis. And number two is to take the guesswork out of visualizing the exit strategy or how the exit for a particular project looks like. So let's dive right into it. So this is going to be the fourth time we are doing this exit strategy analysis. We have already done one for the Hill at One North, Chuan Park and Mayor Blue. You could check out those videos somewhere in this video. I'm going to plug that link there. So for Emerald of Katong, we're going to put in 2,500 PSF. And I think this is already quite aggressive considering if you watched earlier on in the video, I plugged in about 2,001 to 2,200 PSF. Even considering GFA harmonization would allow them to make about the same amount as in terms of percentage profits as Tembusu Grand, Grand Dunman and Continuum. Okay, so if they launch at about 2,500 PSF, they should be sitting on pretty decent profits already. I'm utilizing 990 PSF. This is the 3 premium, which is I've tried to appleize this across the board for the sake of comparison. Next up, we have 4.8% average profitability per annum. How do we get this number? We've consolidated all the developments in the close proximity to Emerald of Katong, basically in the vicinity of the Tanjong Katong MRT. All the way up actually to Hague Roadside, right, Dunman Place over there. As we've consolidated for 1 bidders, 2 bidders, 3 bidders, 4 bidders, up to 5 bidders transactions over the last 12 months. And in order for us to derive this average annualized profitability, we have summed up averaged out all of them to get this number, all the resale transactions to get up this number. And for that, we have an average profitability of about 4.8% amongst all the condos within that area. The total number of units for sale over here, you can see what we do is in the same area, we try to find how many units are currently for sale. We can take a look at this number. It changes from day to day, right? So today that number has come up to 218. We could update that instantaneously. So as you can see over here, this is about the same area that we plugged out all the data from with regards to the average profitability. Okay, we could update that number to 218. And all this will be updated accordingly. Yep, so the total supply of units is the number of units built. So you can see over here for 3 bidders, we bring that up to 4,514. Now, so if we just look at this number, some of you will be scared of, and that's the reason why we want to offer you several different data points, right? And later on, I will make sense of all these data points. So the supply ratio, basically the ratio of the current units for sale as a function of the total supply of units. So let me explain. Why do I utilize these 3 data points? Okay, I like to utilize profitability as sort of a distillation of demand, the clearest way for us to understand the demand in an area. So because people ask me if the area got demand or not, it's very hard to say. Okay, and that involves a lot of, sales stock, so to speak, right? People like to say, oh, HDB upgraders and whatnot, right? So the best way to do so by comparing projects across the board, this is one data point that all condos have, There's no guesswork involved here. It's just facts, numbers, actual data point that you can pull out very, very easily. So if an area has low demand, naturally the profitability will be low. As we have seen this many times, for example, the District 1, District 2 areas, right, the CBD that don't have strong organic demand, naturally the profitability is low. Why? Right? Because all owners will try to make a lot of money, right? But if the demand is not strong, their units on the market for 1 year, 2 years already, they very naturally will start to cut their prices, okay, to try to move it, right? Because tired already, they try to cut their prices and try to move it. If units can sell quickly, most owners will naturally yield a good profit because they always start asking high. Okay, so As we can see over here, profitability is very good at 4.8%, just losing to Chuan Park slightly, okay? But we look at more data than this, right? So that is essentially a demand side data point, whether the profitability is good as a translation of whether the demand in the area is good, okay? But we also want to factor the supply in the area. So it's very important, this data point, to see and to merge these data points together, because if we are just looking at 4,514 units and determine that, you know what, I don't want that area, you may be missing out, okay? Because later on we'll see the other kind of data points. And 218 units, so for here, right, this supply ratio, okay, so supply ratio, as the lower the better. Alright, profitability, obviously the higher the better, okay? And this exit score, the lower the percentage, the better, okay? So over here, quite understandably right, the supply ratio, the exit score is quite high due to the sheer amount of supply in the area. So I have two scores, okay? One is the exit score. This is essentially area specific. So all the condos within the vicinity of Emerald of Katong will share the same score like that. But how do we determine the difference, okay? We'll share this same score but they all have different price So obviously if you have different price, then you should have a different score. If not, within the area, everybody will have the same score. That is why we have this gap score, right? This gap score is a function of price, quantums, right? Full quantums and PSF. So over here, one of the good things, and this is one of the things that I've been mentioning a little bit, right, all the way from last year about the District 15 area, was my conviction for Continuum, Grand Dunman and Tembusu Grand. It's the old versus new supply theory. Basically, that area has a lot of old supply, old freehold supply that has very high prices. Maybe I can give you a glimpse of that, right? So we have condos like the Makina, that's a bit older, but I think the best examples are like the Esta, that's freehold. We have Silver Sea, that was built pretty large over here, 1,500, bringing the quantums higher. Another popular one, right, Amber 45, you see them hitting 3 mil. We have King's Mansion, because it's so big, despite its age freehold, so you average out to about 3.2 mil. Amber Residences, 1 Amber, right, 2.9. So all this, right, despite they are being a bit older, because they are freehold, they are built very large, they have large quantums, okay? And so entering in at this new quantum do not put you at a significant advantage. As a matter of fact, you are lower than the average surrounding quantum, lower than the average median quantum, and quite a 1.2 mil gap away from the highest achieved quantum in that area. Over here at Alto, 1,005, and they have 4 units transacted, still yielding an average of about 3.7 mil. Okay, so we get a really good gap score on the quantums, right? And on the PSF basis as well, I think one good thing about Emerald of Katong is you have the benefit of the other 3 condos over there already helping you pull up this average PSF. You are able to see that they have accepted, people have accepted that kind of PSF, not just in the new launch market, but we also see that in the resale market. Even though it may not be the most apple-to-apple comparison, right? Some of them may be freehold. But if you compare this to, say, Chuan Park, right? This is one of the key difference, right? No real apple-to-apple or similar comparable for you to be able to match your PSF to, right? You are at significantly higher PSF, 800, 900, 500 PSF, higher than anything else in the surrounding. In terms of your quantums, you are 300k, 200k above the surrounding quantums. It takes a bit of research and know-how to determine, you know what, am I able to look past all this data, all these points, right? All these data points for Chuan Park. It really requires a deeper level, more macro perspective of what's a good case study for something similar to Chuan Park that has actually made money, right? We do have that for our clients, okay? So now for Emerald of Katong, all in all, its gap score is -50, which is by far the best across the other 3 developments. And also thanks to each GFA harmonization, keeping its sizes low. So now if we were to rank this out over here, you can see Chuan Park is the best in terms of exit score in that area because Chuan Park don't really have a lot of supply in the area. So that is its obvious plus points, right? Emerald of Katong will be ranked 4th among the developments that we have done this analysis for, right, because of its high supply over there. But Emerald of Katong will rank the best in terms of gap score, right? You are buying into an area that has already seen a certain, right, transactions like that happen even in the resale market, in the new launch market as well. You are PSF wise, you are not significantly higher. As a matter of fact, you're actually lower than some of those people, right? Making us by far the best in terms of gap score. So now, how do you wrap this whole thing together, right? How do you make sense of all of this? Okay, so it's an area that you can buy, gap score, good. Okay, but when you sell, you may take a while, right? You just mentally prepare yourself to spend a bit more time when you need to sell. Right? You got to compete with 200 listings. And this 200 don't include your 3 other friends, right? Your Continuum, Tembusu Grand. So this number is going to spike significantly. 4,500 I already factor in for all these ones that is going to be built, but this 200 haven't factored in. So this number is going to come up. So it's bound to take time. In essence, if you want to be able to sell a little bit quicker upon DOP, my pick may be Chuan. If you say you want to maybe make, but again, Chuan may make more than Emerald of Katong. I don't know. It really depends on what you buy. Okay, it's just that Emerald of Katong have a more safe, right? So if you're the kind of a bit more conservative, you like to buy the area to make sure that that nearby got people already set that kind of benchmark. Then you go for Emerald, right? Both I believe will still make money. Which one make more? Quite hard. Recently a client asked me this question. Really hard to tell. Really hard to tell, right? Because we're going to plug an exit number over at Chuan that hasn't been seen before. You need to take data points from outside of Chuan to really determine how much money you're going to potentially make. So this framework in its current form works best if you're simply looking for an investment purchase and you have no preferences on distance to MRT, schools, and whatnot, and you're just comparing different projects on an apple-to-apple basis, trying to figure out which one has the best exit strategy, which one has the best score. But if you're looking for an investment purchase, you'll be considering additional stuff such as for own stay, right? Things like schools, MRT, amenities, some of the things that I've not yet factored into this, which we do for our clients, right? Size of developments, transformation, new plots in and around the area, the age of developments, rental yield, and from a portfolio optimization basis, you also would consider holding period. So like I mentioned earlier in this example, right? Emerald of Katong, while it has a better gap score, when you sell, it may take a little while more. So holding period for Emerald of Katong, I believe, should be a little bit longer than Chuan Park. In terms of portfolio sizing, so if you see the other spreadsheet that I have, right, it depends on what is your budget, right? And if you cannot buy into one particular unit type that offers a very comfortable gap, you should then drop your budget down and buy one that offers a better gap. Sometimes it's not so much about just maximizing your full budget, right? It's about buying into the unit that offers you the best gap, the safest purchase, right? We also consider opportunity cost. Another big question I'm getting is, how about we wait for something like Toa Payoh, Nava Grove, or another popular question, it's Tampines. The Tampines Integrated Development at Avenue 11. So all these are opportunity costs, which we are assisting with a couple of clients right now. Or you're thinking of, then how do I approach? Should I buy Chuan Park or Emerald of Katong? So all those things have to be put into consideration. Now, having zoomed in on the actual launch day, right, we will also be assisting our clients with competitor analysis, right, within the project itself, right, layout analysis, stack selection, and also one other thing, it's if you're considering PSF, you could also consider PSF gap within the development. So you would imagine, right, Emerald of Katong, 3 compact, 3 premium, different unit numbers, they all have their own individual score. Additionally, if you want to use this framework for resale purchases, it works as well, because resale, you could also rank them up like that, right? So if you want to use this for your own use, we're happy to send it to you. You could figure it out and work it on your own. That's totally fine, right? But if you need some help with this, feel free to drop us a text. happy to help you out. If you're still watching, you probably appreciate the amount of effort, work and research that we put into developing every single one of our videos. We hope that has benefited you, and the only thing we ask for in return is if you could click on the like and subscribe button, because it will help out the channel a ton. Now, moving on to everyone's favorite part, the 3 things we like and don't quite like about Emerald of Katong. Now, bearing in mind that we don't quite have the firmer details yet, such as the layouts, the site plans, so on and so forth, right? These 3 things we like and don't like is more of on the macro perspective. We'll probably do one when more of those details are out, right? So remember to click on the bell notification button, subscribe, so that you are informed when those come out. Or if you're looking to be updated on the latest information from the developers for Emerald of Katong, you could drop us your contact somewhere in the description or over here, and we'll be sending it over to you the minute we get it from the developers. So now let's talk about the first thing I like about Emerald of Katong, the entry quantums. Now I'm going to break that down into 2 points, right? Point number 1 is the old versus new supply thesis. What do I mean by that? I've talked about this quite a fair bit in all my previous District 15 videos, Continuum, Grand Dunman and Tembusu Grand. And we have seen, based on the take-up rate, how this thesis is really impacting demand and supply. So now, what do I mean by that? District 15 is unique in the sense that it has a pretty wide range of supply, right? For those of you who were watching early on in the video, you could see in the research that we have done, right? In terms of sizing, we have the older units such as the S-Star, such as one Amber that come in at 1,500, Alto come in at 1,500, 1,600 square feet, they are freehold. So even though their PSF is maybe slightly lower than our new 99 PSF, their quantums are quite large, okay? So large to the extent that even the new one come in at our new benchmark PSS, right, is still lower than the quantum prices that you see over in the resale market. And this is quite unique in terms of the market, right? You don't really see this, let's say, all the way out in the OCR, where a lot of the supply is a lot more homogeneous in that sense. And when you're entering as a new development in that area, you're highest in terms of PSF, you're highest also in terms of quantum. So there's not many areas in Singapore that offer you this new versus old supply rhetoric, right? And that's why I like over here at District 15. And point number 2, and this is unique to Emerald of Katong, which is the GFA harmonization. The GFA harmonization has allowed them to be able to price their entry quantums even one more step lower than everyone else, right? So you're entering in, albeit likely to be one of the higher PSFs, right? But this is where things gets very interesting, right? So because they bought their land so cheap, right? So you may be even cheaper than, say, the other 3 launches, right? I mean, definitely cheaper than Continuum, but maybe even cheaper than Tembusu Grand or Grand Dunman, possibly, okay? And then because of your sizing differential, and I've illustrated the gaps earlier on in the video, because of the sizing differential, you're entering in at maybe same or lower PSF and lower quantums. So you're entering in the newest guy in the district with the lowest quantums, and that's, to me, a very interesting perspective and actually very, very safe. And to point number 2 on what I like about Emerald of Katong is the performance of the surrounding launches. They have sold pretty well, as we have seen in the earlier part of the video, right? Balanced 20%, 30%, 50%. But if we dive deep inside, actually, the affordable quantums one, the more popular quantums from the 1.8 to the 2.4 million price points have all been sold off, right? There's not much options available for you already, right? And then we dive even deeper into that, you notice that despite on the surface level that may look like there's a lot of supply, right? There are gaps to be found. For example, Grand Dunman doesn't have 2-bed, 2-bath. Continuum, some of the larger units are built way too big, very, very big, similar to Grand Dunman, 3-bedders, private lease. So there are some segments of supply in this big chunk of supply that really is going to be, I don't really suggest lah, right? And so if you narrow down the can buy ones, are actually not a lot. Okay, so that area is not going to go into oversupply situation. So for those of you who are sharp and you can see past that, right, you may be able to pounce on opportunities that people may just have simply cancelled off, right, because they feel there's oversupply. For example, they feel that there's no good schools in and around that area, for example, or too far from the MRT, for example. So in essence, if you're looking to purchase something from I believe the 1.7 to about the 2.8 million price point, it's pretty safe, right? Buying it in, because if you analyze the supply over on the other 3 launches, there's not much available, good available ones already. But of course, I have to caveat, at the end of the day, really still depend on the pricing and also depend on the layouts. Now, the third thing I like about Emerald of Katong, for those of you who follow the channel, this is probably the most common like I have, which is the size of the development, the number of units in the development, right? Because we all know the higher the number of units, the stronger the transaction volumes, the faster your price go up. And we've seen this very, very evidently in District 15, maybe with the exception of Silver Sea. But other than that, large units in District 15, I'm talking about 500 units and above, they all do very, very well. And if you can see from that perspective, you also can split out the supply, right? So yes, we look at 4,500, just 3 bedders in and around the vicinity of Emerald of Katong may scare you off. But if you, let's say, filter out the large developments, 500 units and above, you will realize that there's actually not as much competition as what you imagine there to be. Now, moving on to the 3 things I don't quite like about Emerald of Katong, and on point number 1 is the lack of a good school within 1 km. Now, there's Head Girls and Tanjong Katong Primary within 1 km, but the key thing over here within the other launches, right, this batch of launches in D15, it's Kong Hwa. And so Kong Hwa is only within 1 km of Continuum and Grand Dunman, right? Tembusu Grand recently found out that it's actually out of 1 km, and so that's another story for another day, and Emerald of Katong is not within 1 km. Okay, so now this is just something to pay attention to when you buy. Is it a deal breaker to me? The answer is no. At the end of the day, all your units over at the Mayor side, they're not within 1 km of good schools as well. They still do very, very well, right? The S-Star, One Amber, all those also don't have the good school as an anchor. They still do very, very well. So is it a deal breaker? The answer is no, but it's just something to pay attention to, especially understanding that people coming in may consider this whole batch or the batch in a similar way. On to point number 2, on what I don't quite like about Emerald of Katong, is its distance to the MRT. So it's stated on Google Maps as about 850 meters away. So, but here in it, is it going to be a deal breaker? The answer is no. District 15 has done terribly well over the years without having any MRT, right? Thankfully, Tanjong Katong came up. If not, it'll be even further from the MRT, right? But it's just something to pay attention to. But also, one of the more important points to note, especially for the investors comparing Emerald of Katong and Chuan Park, because Chuan Park is so much nearer to the MRT. Now, how do you balance these 2 things out, right? Refer to the earlier part of the video on the exit strategy framework. On to the third thing I don't quite like about Emerald of Katong, it's FOMO. So why do I feel that there's a lot of FOMO coming in despite the headline news of low new launch sales, right? Because the clients that we are speaking to, we do have quite a fair number of clients that have been waiting quite a while for the Emerald of Katong launch, right? Also, it's similar to Chuan Park, right? So there's these 2 big launches that has been pushed back to the later part of the year, and there's pent-up demand ever since Lentor Mansion launched. So it's a good almost 6 months in the 6 to 7 months in the year without any big launches really, right? So a lot of pent-up demand, a lot of people waiting to come in, right? So if you don't have a very clear plan in play, I really suggest you try to work that out in your mind first. Don't go in blindly, because if you go in like that, and you go to the balloting day, which again I've emphasized many times, is designed to make you kanjong, to make you FOMO, right, and to make rash decisions over there. Okay, so take your time right now. We're still probably about a month or so out to launch, right? Do your research, especially important to balance out if you're an investor looking at Chuan Park or Emerald of Katong, which one is better, which one you're more comfortable with, because I have a gut sense, right? Based on what we understand, they may launch quite close to one another, but if they launch exactly the same time, have the ballot there exactly the same time, which maybe the developer will try to do that, right? Because if they are selling right now, they may be catering to the same pool of buyers, right? In their perspective, catering to the same pool of buyers, they may try to launch the same time. Then how do you going to tackle that as well? It's also very, very important. All of this we can do ahead of time to prevent this FOMO from causing you to perhaps make a decision that you might not be so happy with in hindsight. So we've come to the end of this video. If there's anything you've seen in the earlier parts, the research that we have done, that you would like to take a look at, have a copy of, feel free to drop us a text. We'll be happy to send it over to you. If not, please don't forget to like and subscribe, as you help out the channel a ton. And for those of you who are perhaps a little bit confused, lack clarity, or not quite sure on what to buy, how do you maximize your portfolio, or what to do with your current property, and can resonate with the way we think, like our data-driven approach and the systematic way we approach a property purchase and property planning, feel free to reach out to us. Happy to help you out.